I had a life and death experience
Oh.
that saved me, and I didn't die. And I realized that I had the best in the country, in the world by my side to talk with me about my mind, my fears, my doubts, my feelings in general, to get me out of the PTSD that I was going through. That is my mother, but who did the world have? So I took the anxiety that lay in me, and it could have become the end of me, but I chose it to be a torchbearer for millions. And here we have Trijog today, which does
Wow.
exactly that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me wake up early and do a podcast. This is the first time I've done it in the day. I've been here since 9:30 a.m. This is actually one of the very first times that we've actually decided to sit down and have a long conversation. Otherwise, it's always been like, okay, we bumped into each other, decided to have dinner, all of us together, and we've had separate conversations, yes, but never had the real chance to have a proper long conversation about what you do, how all of this came to place. And obviously I've heard from Arjun great things about you, your business, etc. Want to start from absolute beginning just to understand. Firstly, you are a trained psychologist, right? I mean, I don't know how it works, so
So the beauty of it is, I would like to say I'm a feeling being and I'm a human being. And if any of us are human beings, then we have a mind. And if you have a mind, you can train your mind to create anything one can ever imagine. I am an entrepreneur, I am a businesswoman, I am the social voice of India for mental health, and that's what I do.
wow, that's I mean, that's the answer I was looking for.
And to also answer you, I'm not a trained psychologist. I Everything today that I can emulate or carry out or execute, it is because of high observational learning, which I think is the best ways to learn anything in life. My mom, Arushi Sethi, who is the co-founder of Trijog and our chairperson, she is a pioneer in the space for the last 37 years.
Wow.
And when you see somebody transforming individual life on life and you're so close to that, I think my learning in the psychology space has been very observational. Number two, life. I studied mass media. I do business and mental health. In 2015, I had a life and death experience that saved me, and I didn't die. And I realized that I had the best in the country, in the world by my side to talk with me about my mind, my fears, my doubts, my feelings in general, to get me out of the PTSD that I was going through. That is my mother, but who did the world have? So I took the anxiety that lay in me, and it could have become the end of me, but I chose it to be a torchbearer for millions. And here we have Trijog today, which does
Wow.
exactly that. So
That's
yeah.
that's something to look forward to discussing, because I absolutely had no idea everything you just mentioned in the span of the last 5 minutes. Again, from a very external point of view, I know what Trijog does, but to get a little deeper into how you've sort of created a system where you are training people, right, to impart the knowledge and impart the understanding ahead through series of like 70 plus people, and there's just a lot happening in terms of this. I can't completely say that this is a business, because it's much more, right? You're building a community, you're helping corporates, and in a very important time in their lives, understand how it's important to not only exercise and have your physical body in the peak state, but also mentally be at par with where a normal human should be, considering there's always so much exhaustion which is being glorified right now. So how did this come to place in terms of you knowing ki, okay, uh, this is something, again, like you said, right? You have the ability or the understanding, the observational understanding of how you can impart this knowledge, but then you have to delegate it across like I said, 70 plus people that who are working with you. How do you do that?
So thank you so much, for the question, Dwayne. Now everybody sees. So we'll come to tackling first things first. Now everybody sees the lights and the grandeur around mental health. In the last 2 years we've had an epiphany, like we all had forgotten earlier that we all have a mind. It unfortunately took us something as dire and serious as the COVID SARS-19 virus to affect all of us. So for the first time, instead of going outside, we had to go inside. Hence we started, even for the first time, coming one with our inner feelings, right? So what is Trijog? Trijog is your house of therapy. Trijog is your safe space. It is your guiding light. Why Trijog? Why did we come about? 7 years back, almost a decade back when we started, mental health was not it was a complete unorganized structure, an unorganized market. That's why sometimes when I say the term business, it is so that we're taken seriously. The 100 people in my team work very, very hard. They study lives, they talk through lives, they talk through our thoughts, they make us better people. That is a science. And our science need to be and must be accredited. Today, we have brought mental health to mainstream light, because we are realizing that we have a very big elephant unaddressed. Just because we can't see something, that does not make it not real. So Trijog came about to wanting to bring affordable and the correct mental health care to people. That is what has been the most beautiful thing to build. Like you said, why would a 50-year-old trust a 20-year-old who started something in the space, right? It is with knowing the right kind of how to dispense the right kind of knowledge that exists, that always existed with Arushi Sethi, right? Creating a structured organization, moving the industry from an unstructured one to a structured one. Earlier, there were only hospitals or clinics, right?
Absolutely.
Today, you're sitting in something we call a spa for our mind, right? So the first thing Trijog does that you were asking is, we transform individual lives via the tool of therapy. All right, you could be a child, you could be adolescent, you could be an adult. If you have a mind, you have mental health. Your mental health can be excellent. Take therapy to build your emotional immunity. Your mental health could be all right, not so good. Take therapy to understand how you can become a better version of yourself. You're not doing so good, it has turned and tipped over to a mental concern, mental illness. Take therapy. There is a way forward. So we began with working with individuals, and the goodwill and the success of every client life took us to the corporate world and corporate India. Today we service over 120 partners in the corporate space. We do service multiple Fortune 500 companies as well. And it is amazing. And I'd like to mention, few people's names particularly who handheld, who showed so much trust in the brand, the team, the quality before the world started vouching for us as a brand. So my heartfelt gratitude would always be with certain people like the Z Group, BMW India, Kyunki, Dolly, all of these people, OML, Shikha to be specific. Fantastic. Thank you for being the first runners. And today we service a lot of people in the corporate sector. And I'd also like to thank the PTM group. Deepti Goyal has been nothing of fantastic. And now the way is only forward.
So, firstly, wow, I had no idea about all of this. It's great knowing finally. One of the main things that actually in the span of again the last few minutes, that every time you're saying something, there's just so many questions that come to my mind, right? Let me compartmentalize first. Like, let's talk about therapy, and let's talk about mental health apart, like very, very away from what you're doing, okay? Like, what is therapy exactly? And the reason I want to break it down is because anyone who's watching, right? Again, like for someone like me, I have been always exposed to information about therapy. I've been exposed to information about mental health. I read a lot about it, and I know there is no stigma in like pursuing a therapist, or like even considering doing that, right? But I never took that step forward. I understand how it could be beneficial. I understand that I don't need to have a mental illness just to tap into my peak potential. I should probably consider it and help myself. But I never got to the position where I would take that physical step of going. So I want to understand from a very layman point of view, and again, more than for people watching, for me, to understand what exactly is therapy, what happens. That is the part one. And the second part of the question is there a scientific diagnosis to, like you mentioned, like if someone's mentally sick, right? Is there a chemical or like some test that people do that helps you give this diagnosis?
Right, so thank you for both your questions. We'll first talk about what therapy is, and in the most basic way, so that anybody listening to this can identify with us, all right? Therapy is a partnership between two individuals where one of them is a trained psychologist, psychotherapist, counseling psychologist, clinical psychologist, anybody who comes with a degrees post a master's in clinical industrial behavioral psychology understands the know and how of counseling. All right? Now, psychologists are trained to understand how thoughts affect one's feelings and how feelings affect one's actions. All right? What happens in therapy? In therapy, in typically the first session, all right, the counselor will ask the counselee certain number of questions. We call it history taking. History taking is a very important process. Whoever is going for counseling, whoever will explore the counseling, and why. The history needs to be taken very well by your psychologist. So we take history, we'll ask you multiple number of questions about yourself, about your life, about your childhood, all right? If about your marital life, about pregnancies, different things like that. On collecting history from you, we then come to the present relevant concern that you're facing. Your history is taken because a lot of times in life, how we are feeling is deeply connected to our triggers. And our triggers has a connection with our past. You could be feeling really anxious right now, but why are you feeling anxious could even do with a memory that you have not worked before that exists. So why does therapy help? Number one, after we uncover your history, we understand your present concern and what your triggers are. So we make a short-term and a long-term plan as to what are we going to be uncovering. All right? With you, through certain techniques that the therapist then knows that will work, like rational behavioral therapy, CBT, art therapy, a lot of people are hearing about, music therapy a lot. We use eclectic therapy at Trijog. That means a mix of the best wonders of therapy for that individual. You got what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, after your first session, your long-term and your short-term goals will be down. What do you currently want to work on? What do you want to work on in the long term?
And so this solution is built and tailored according to the personal interests and lifestyle of the
There is no
person.
solution, and that is the myth that we're going to bust today.
Okay, all right, let's get to that.
There is no solution. You will, with the therapist, co-figure what works for you. There is no right or wrong. Nobody out there is going to come save you, make a difference to you. No. The other person is going to be with you while you make a difference to yourself. We are going to show you the mirror of your thoughts, the mirror of your behaviors, the mirror of your actions, and show you an objective view of either choice and path that you pick. You will learn the ways in therapy to know, let's say for example, what does discipline mean? Discipline is not knowing when you have to do what. Discipline is knowing how much you have to do when. You're getting the difference?
Yes.
It's not about waking up at 9 in the morning. It's about you are out somewhere and you are required to exit the scene at a particular time because you have an early morning. That becomes discipline. You're getting what I mean? The little difference?
Yes, of course.
So, for therapy to work for an individual, a couple of things are going to be very important. Number one, discipline. You should really want to make a difference to yourself. If you're not feeling so good, we are going to align with you and give you the tools and show you the mirror, but you should want to make that difference to yourself. That's when therapy is going to work. Therapy is a partnership. It involves equal and more work on the individual side because it's your life 100% that the person is concentrating on and with, right? You have to actively work on transformation of certain patterns that you're into for therapy to work. And patience is the only key with therapy. So, the right therapist at the right time and patience while feeding yourself with the best will get you to level up from A to B. Now, who is the right therapist? How can I trust somebody in the system? How can I talk to any random
Those are the
person?
exact questions on my mind right now. Like one of the main things, me as a human being, I've always had issues with is trusting someone. And again, there's no past situation where I have had my trust taken for granted or anything. But just as a human being, right? Like any decision you make, you want to be fully sure that you're dedicating your time to this. That needs to be a foolproof activity. So like in something like this where not demanded, but where I'm expected to share like everything and be an open book in front of someone, there's like a situation of confidentiality that comes. Obviously, like I know there's all sorts of like legal things that are involved with like a therapist and the patient, as I guess that's what you call them.
Client.
Like, clients, patient, whatever.
We're not patients,
Not in
we're
your
clients.
case, in general.
Yeah, in
Okay.
general, clients.
Okay, clients. But still, like at the end of the day, it's me opening up to a stranger. How, again, from no past experience of therapy, so I won't know the level of comfort that might be established in the first setting itself. But still, like even you might be my best friend, but I'll still be hesitant on sharing my thoughts and sharing a lot of things that really mean to me, because a lot of the times you are doing self-analysis of whether something you think is right or wrong. You know in the moment what you're thinking is wrong, but you're still thinking it. So is it something you share? Is it something you don't?
So that is the beauty of an organized space, and that is the beauty of a great therapist versus a good therapist. And great things exist, and that's why Trijog is here. I would definitely say that I would love for you to just take a session and experience the rapport of comfort. When you sometimes don't know anybody, it is a lot easier for you to open up because you're free of judgment, you're free of biases, and we uphold the cornerstone of confidentiality to the highest degree. That is the principles of what Trijog has been built with. So now coming to your question, you said, Aru, how does somebody trust another human being to talk to their life about? Man, that's large.
Yeah.
That's exactly the question that came to my mind when I was getting airlifted and rescued from the 2015 earthquake in Nepal. We didn't die, and while I was with the Indian Army in the Hercules fighter jet on the way back, I met my friend Anxiety, and I didn't feel safe. And what is the one thing we want in the world? To feel safe and to be able to trust. So I turned to the one person who gave me both, safety and trust. And she told me one thing, my mother, Anarit, who we're talking about. What is a greater power than power itself? The power of knowledge. And if you have that, let that be shared, let that be known. So it became my life's goal to take that kind of high value, high ethic, and exceptional, system to let Trijog be an emulation of the highest space of trust and the highest space of safety.
Interesting. Those are the solid pillars that you've built everything you're doing right now on. That's pretty interesting. Definitely would consider taking a session with one of your therapists to know how it feels. Circling back to one of the questions that I also have this habit of interrupting and piling on with questions, okay. So don't mind. But circling back to one of the questions, is there a scientific diagnosis of if you give me a diagnosis that I'm mentally ill, how does that
work? So guys, we all need to know if you all are going to a counseling psychologist or a clinical psychologist. Now, what Trijog has done is we have added a layer of information and awareness for people. When you call into Trijog, you are going to be attended by somebody called an emotional first aider.
Okay.
She's going to ask you, how are you feeling today? What are you feeling? You have so many questions about therapy. If somebody answered them before booking your session, how would you feel? Good, right?
Yes.
Right? You'd feel more informed, you'd feel
Absolutely.
more connected, right?
Absolutely.
Now, so hence, when it comes to process, when it comes to systems, we have upped every game in India that there could be to spread awareness and bring the right kind of therapy, therapist, team, and quality of work, when it comes out there. Coming to diagnostics, a lot of people self-diagnose themselves, saying, okay, I think I'm depressed. Okay, I think I have anxiety. Okay, I
Yes.
think I have ADD. Sometimes you don't even address that feeling. There's a flip side. Your heart is throbbing like crazy, but you're like, no, it's just my coffee. It's not your coffee, bro. It's called anxiety. You can address it. Yes, there is a scientific way to diagnose the pyramid of mental health. Via certain tools, we can diagnose levels of anxiety, depression, when it pits from a concern to an illness, when it does become clinical, subclinical, what is it, what is the bend of it. All diagnostics and tests are available. Make sure that when you all are doing these diagnostics and tests, you all know which is the reputed test you're doing, or which is the organization or the person who's administering their test, because it is important to give a test, but the diagnosis of it is what is even more important. And at Trijog, yes, absolutely, we administer over 32 clinical assessments and about 100 subclinical assessments that are to do with things like mood, stress, stuff like that.
Interesting. Again, something new that I've just found out about the whole process of getting your mental health back on track. One of the main reasons I wanted to get in touch and have this conversation right now is because we're in Men's Mental Health Month.
Yeah.
One of the topics that has way too much of a stigma around discussions, or even like as a man, it's still a little less likely for me to pursue mental health in times like these when it's especially required, right? Do you face these instances where men are hesitant on sharing something, or as a whole coming to you for help with their mental health, especially in your close friend circle, and how do you help them?
So I would say I've been very fortunate to be surrounded with the kind of men I have been in my life. All of my best friends are men. My two main figures growing up, my dad, my brother, my partner at the firm, men. The human being I married, a man. That works for me. While growing up and growing around these men, I always saw a very free flow of emotion, a lot of care, a lot of sensibility, but a lot of sensitivity. That made me realize that it doesn't matter whether you're man or woman, as long as you're a human being, you have a mind, you're going to have mental health. But what did society do? Society portrayed the protector to not have any concerns. Now we're challenging roles. The protector is no more a man, it is a man and a woman both.
Absolutely.
We were never allowed to show any part of ourselves that showed our true selves. For men, I feel really sad.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
especially so. Again, growing up in a very local household, which is like instilling values from a specific community, a caste. You know how every individual caste has their own the set of rules that they've been put in place since like generations, right? So obviously therapy as a whole, as a conversation, has so much stigma around, but a man, like you mentioned, being a protector and being this even a breadwinner in many cases, this whole breadwinner is expected to uphold its own and not rely on someone else for safety, for seeking help. That has obviously been something very challenging. I personally, thankfully, the kind of family and the kind of values I grew up with, I've never been shown a position like this, or I've always been exposed to information that makes me realize how important it's been. So I really don't get it. Like, I don't get why there's this stigma. But it's funny how, again, even the people I grew up with who had the same amount of exposure or the same amount of schooling, education, whatever, right? They are still upholding these principles that they are like the generations before them have instilled into them. And it's really sad to see. I want to help, but there's always an emotional barrier in place, which I would say is an ego, the typical man
Absolutely
ego as
right.
they call
It is.
which is
Yeah.
very, very difficult to break.
So, Dwayne, it all comes down to a very large thing that we must discuss for men: self worth. I want to ask all of the men here today, what are you deriving your self worth out of? Because the way you see yourself will be the way you conduct yourself in every way, every situation, every relationship, at your workplace, at your home. How do you see yourself? What is your self worth? Let's go back to the basics and have that conversation with ourselves. If somebody is perceiving you in a certain way, does that have more to do with you or with him? It has a lot more to do with him, his insecurities, his self-worth than yours. Let's become a little bit aware. Let's realize that you being true to yourself and working on your self-worth defines one's success, not the other way around. Not how, exactly, not the other way around. So for men, it is very important to now start realizing what is my self-worth, and using your own emotions to become a strength of your self-worth. Care is so sexy and charming, you know. The way my husband takes care of his and my mental health with so much immense love, communication, kindness. If we started coming in touch with our vulnerabilities, they are our true strengths, not our branching points. When you are more true to yourself, you feel more connected with yourself. And that is the kind of body language you are giving out as well. So what will you attract? A whole web of amazing connections, because you're only inviting the self-worth that you're letting out. So be you, be yourself, acknowledge your feelings, honor your feelings. You today have a very big responsibility. People are looking at you as a human being. Emulate what you would want the world to have more of. You can do that today. Every single individual can make that difference. And let's start the Great Men Project, because I believe if all of us started working on becoming kinder to ourselves, we would already be bringing a lot of betterment to the world at large, and also helping ourselves become better people. Yeah.
Of course. But it's very challenging in times when, like I said, it's easier
Said that.
to succumb to what's, how do I put this? Now, let's say, okay, let's talk about me personally, right? Like, I'm around a bunch of people that I've grown up with. I have different friend circle who have different values, who talk about different things, like maybe social, maybe to do with business. But every time I'm in a certain environment, I'm very self-aware by the way. I feel I'm very self-aware, and I know which are the environments that make me feel good, that may help me thrive, that trigger my thinking into a positive state. But at the same time, there are these moments, there are these circles that I end up going back to, which it's funny, like they give a comfort zone. But if I look back at it, every time I'm out of that circle, I am in a negative state of emotion, right? So this is a very tricky thing, right? It's like this paradox that's being created. It's so difficult to navigate through. Like I said, I'm aware of how I'm feeling, but what
do
will
I do
get
with the
me?
feeling? Yeah.
What will get me to take that action, which is like, again, which circles back to, as you mentioned, discipline, right? It's obviously such a hard thing, and I don't know why something like this has not been taught growing up, right? Like mental health
Absolutely.
also, I feel like should be a discussion in schools. It's something that's never happened, at
Yeah.
least when I was growing up. Be it man, woman, doesn't matter, right? As a
We
whole.
need our full subjects. How are you feeling should be the subject.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
If there's yoga, why can't there be anything to do with like understanding why you're doing that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, like again coming back to the point where it's a challenge to make yourself be in the right state all the time, right? Keeping the whole man-woman conversation aside, as a
A
human
state
being,
that makes you feel comfortable more than right.
That's what I'm trying to say. There's like a distinction between that. There's comfort and there's something that's right. Like I just mentioned, with my personal experience,
Okay, so
there are
another way to put it would be finding yourself in a state of calm where you're not getting eaten up by your restlessness, whether that is one of
Absolutely.
thoughts, behavior, or action. Right? We all want to feel that state.
Yeah.
And your
So,
question is?
do you think in this case, the comfort that I may refer to might be an illusion? You know, when I said like I keep going back to, let's say, a set of people who might trigger my negative emotions, where I know there are like there's a
Because
way larger circle which might trigger the positive ones, but
Yeah.
I still seek comfort in balancing. Do you think it's an illusion?
Yeah, because so more than an illusion, you are going back to familiarity. And who doesn't like things that are familiar? Your muscle memory, your body memory, and your brain memory have already become used to those things. Let's say if people are going through a difficult breakup, right? Why do we keep being in that loop? It's familiarity. That place may not be that place may be toxic for you, and you're aware that this is toxic for me, but you keep getting sucked into it, whether it is lifestyle, whether it is a breakup, whether it is anything. Your sometimes it could even be like, you're saying addressing a social situation, right? Anything familiar attracts us more. So why you keep going back is familiarity. How you can move out of the loop is by talking to a therapist to understand your behavior patterns. What is it in that situation that has so much affinity for me? Can I attract that affinity or get that in from another place? So my body automatically and my mind does not want to find myself in this situation. You'll have to work through your thoughts, and thank you for being so self-aware, because the first step towards transformation is awareness, acceptance, and acknowledgement. And the largest thing that I have seen from you today is, which I encourage all men to do and just all individuals in general, reflection. We don't always need to do what to do, that will come as long as we are making aware that, hey, I want to know how I'm feeling. Reflection is your key to moving from good to great.
I'm trying to just process all of that. It's very important, yes. And one of the main reasons I think I've achieved this understanding of what being self-aware means is, again, growing up, I grew up very differently, where I wasn't the person you see right now in terms of even conversation, in terms of, I would say, how my mind works. I was a very simple, plain child who would not be academically bright, literally would fail through classes, been asked to shift my board of schooling because I wasn't meant for it apparently. This sudden shift when I explored a lot of material online. Do you know who Tony Robbins is? Of course. So I've like literally not even kidding about this or exaggerating. There have been times in life way early on when I was like this was like 2012, when I must have been in the 9th or 10th grade, or even before that. Can't remember the year. But regardless, I've come across this material that's available online on YouTube, and I've watched videos after videos after videos. And that time, even mental health wasn't that big a thing, I'm assuming, at least not in my environment or in the school environment. And to know how it works, to go through every seminar of his. So I know there was like literal critical information out there about how each individual can help themselves become self-aware. So consuming that, yes, I've reached a point in life where I feel I understand how I feel at any given point. I know what brain fog may also be and how I can get past that. But I personally feel that there are times when uh, it's like having the information, not acting upon it, right? So there have been times where, and this is something I guess a lot of people would relate to. When you have information, you know the things that would help you get beyond a certain stage or a certain phase you're going through, right? Be it mentally, be it even physically, right? Like if you eat fruits, you feel healthy. Why don't more people eat fruits, right? So anything to do with mental health, if there's something that you know may make you feel better about, like I said, in my case, that's the information that I have access to. But I've always found it very hard to action. Take action towards moving in that direction, because obviously it's a process, right? It's hard work. I would say it's hard work, and I know eventually it's something that's going to help me. But how does one literally get themselves to move forward in any direction that's going to help them mentally grow beyond who they are?
So, four things that every individual should definitely practice. Number one, what is the physical immunity that you're bringing to yourself, right? 10 minutes of exercise, dance, yoga, whatever works. We need to have 10 minutes of physical immunity building in our routine. Then, emotional immunity. How are you building that? Are you reading or consuming content? Are you attending webinars? Are you going for therapy? Are you gratitude journaling? Where are you cleansing your mind? You said, it's really difficult, Aru, to actually start with the process. In a show of hands in this room, can I ask, have we all had a shower today? Shower? You cleaned your physical body today?
Yes.
It was easy.
Yes.
Pick up the phone, darling. Call up and take a shower for your mind. That thing has not been showered. Please, let's cleanse it. So, what is your emotional immunity that you're doing to up it in your life? Okay? I've given us a few options. And it is as easy as that. There is only one thing standing between you and your goal, and that is you. That's it. It's as simple as that. Coming to the third thing, social. We're very social beings. What is your social connectedness? By that I mean making it an effort to lend a compliment to a friend over the phone, or having 10 minutes of some kind of social interaction, all right? Like making a plan with somebody to go out and get coffee or whatever, etc. And the fourth would be spiritual. All right, what are you doing so that you can connect with the unknown, which actually drives everything? You need to ground yourself with body, spirit, mind, and breath. 10 minutes. So, my mantra to keep my mental health up and active and lifted is to have these four things included in my everyday routine.
And I think most of the people miss out the last part. I've only recently realized how important faith is. Again, growing up with exposure to so much information, I sort of took a route where I stopped believing and having faith. I wouldn't say I'm an atheist at any point. I
Absolutely.
would still, like, for the sake of my parents, for the sake of my family, do whatever is being asked of me. But I still believe there is a higher power that controls everything in the world, right? So, learning about that, reading about that, I have realized how important it is just to believe in the unknown.
Absolutely, and to ground ourselves with that. So, if your energy belongs where it is given, where attention is given, that part grows to anything. You wanted to start this podcast, look at where you are. You gave it attention, it's growing, right?
Yes.
The same way we need to give attention to these four aspects in our life for us to see growth. Yeah.
And especially from your point of view, right, when you have so much going on, you have obviously the mental health side of things to take care of as your business, your employees, your clients, as you call them, and every stakeholder that's being involved with Trijog, especially. While all of this happening, you have a lot of operational stuff that may have to be taken care of in terms of growth of the business, right? To help this reach a wider audience and go beyond borders. In the chaos that there may be, how do you help yourself? That's one of the biggest challenges, I would say, you or anyone in your position might be facing, right? Because if you are a beacon of something that you believe in, it's also important for you to project that.
Yes, very, very well said. I think I couldn't put it better. So, what has helped me and what do I do, right? Number one, it's my support systems. I thank the Lord every second for having the family that supports me, every endeavor, every dream, having the husband who pushes me beyond my every limit and who is there. Knowing that you have people there for you builds such a sense of security, it gives you more power than you can imagine. So that's something that really helps me. Second, communication. everybody at the top, it is very important for you to communicate and have that channel of communication with the person you trust the most, my partner, for example, right? I communicate with him about my good days, my bad days, my great days, my worst feeling, my happiest feeling, because it needs to come out somewhere. Number 3, I have the best therapist in the world. How do you think I survive?
Well said. Well said.
I have the best therapist in the world, and she is literally my guiding light. I went into therapy 4 years back because I knew what I had to build would be larger than me. It would involve a lot of resilience, emotional centering, and we're human beings. I'm a human being at the end of the day, despite of the roles that I need to play. And I need to get my thought process up to such a beautiful way of functioning that we can manage it all, because I tell you, it's all possible. It is all possible. Having the life you imagined, doing the service you imagined, really making the difference you always believed you could, with having good mental health, is all possible. But it is not possible without working towards it. I think taking therapy for me was something that built this level of empathy in me, that I could understand objectively about other people and their behaviors, and it's very important for multiple situations. But more than that, it gave me a space that I can confide in, I can talk to, and I just think it's helped me keep on track and build resilience to such an amount that today you learn the techniques. Another thing we should share with people is that if you're in therapy, it doesn't mean that you have to be in therapy forever. Let's say when I started therapy, maybe I was doing a weekly session. Now I speak to my therapist once in a month, and that's okay for me because I have developed certain amount of tools. But I would credit it to these 3 things: support, communication, and my therapist. They keep me sane, and they are my lifelines.
Interesting. That's again me trying to process a lot of information that's new to me. I had a very external point of view of how therapy or how mental health works, and having read about it, of course, there's more and more information out there. But being in person, talking to someone who's going through a daily basis is like an entirely different concept to me. I feel that personally, I am at the professional peak of my mind state, my mental health and my state of mind, and I know there could be a potential I could further tap into. So obviously having a conversation with you who's going through this on a daily basis, as opposed to just having information accessible online, is going to encourage me to go and pursue it. So thank you firstly for having this conversation. It just opens my mind up to a lot of things. So one of the key points I want to address is exhaustion, right? I think this is something that people talk about all the time. It's glorified over the last decade, how you have not made it or you're not putting in your best if you're exhausted at the end of the day. And there are these quotes about I think Shah Rukh Khan was the one to talk about this openly, where if you're at ease, you are not working hard. You need to be constantly in discomfort, and you need to feel exhausted to actually achieve success. And that is, again, it is so hard to point out what's right, what's wrong. For some people something might work, something might not, right? And again, success as a word is also so personal to everyone, you can't define it. So I just want to know what your point of view on this is.
It comes back to the same thing we spoke about. It comes down to self-worth. We are a generation which has let success. What does success mean? Does it mean killing myself for 18 hours not getting sleep? Does it mean, being so exhausted that I don't have the time to connect with the 4 things we spoke about: emotional, physical, social, spiritual? What does success mean? Why are we letting success define our self-worth? It goes down to the basics. We have become a generation which is dolloped with insecurity. We're insecure about everything. We're insecure about ourselves because we are not able to find worth in ourselves, in our everyday. We feel the only way to be worthy is by achieving things that we don't know whether will give us contentment or satisfaction or not. And it could work. It has really worked for multiple people around the world. And I will tell you this, Abhishek, without hard work, seldom do great things happen, good things can happen. You need to work hard, but you need to respect yourself. The first time I took a 45-day leave was for my wedding, and I'll tell you, the business has done the best it ever has when I was on leave. If I'm thinking that I'm the one running the show, are you right? But jokes apart, allow yourself to rest, to reset. That is the most important thing we need to learn as individuals. What works for you? If you need to take those 2 days off and your productivity is super high in the 5 days after, that's your mantra. 18 hours don't work for some individuals, and that's great. Because I want to be able to accommodate feeling more restful, I am increasing 2 hours into my morning and waking up early. It's not because I want to accomplish reaching the moon anytime soon right now. You're getting what I mean?
Yes.
So build your routine to what works for you. Please answer and seek answers to things like, what does contentment mean to me? And if that means watching sunset with a cup of your green tea, then do that more often than not. Because if you don't rest, how will you reset? We need to take time off to reflect, because in reflection we rebuild. In reflection we grow. And let's move from this concept that hustle is the only way. Hustle is one of the ways. We are 7 billion of people of us on this planet. Of course, one mantra won't work for all. Get in touch with your self-worth. Build your self-worth internally so that you define success, not the other way around. Yeah.
Of course.
And the last thing I'd also like to share with people, why is it a lot of times that we don't seek therapy? We're scared of ourselves. We're scared of facing ourselves.
Yeah, I get it. I get it, of course. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for taking such an important topic to the world. God bless you. Be the man Abhishek is, guys.
Thank you so
Men
much.
and mental health go together. We all go together. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming into our space. I hope you enjoyed our spa for the mind.